Before we get into the emerging tech, we're going to touch on MYOB statement of direction. Now, we've heard a bit about this from Ronnie and from others, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much. There's a couple of slides that I'd like to go over with you though and share with you. Then we're going to look at emerging tech around the EXO product. We're going to look at some of the ISVs, the add-on products that are introducing AI and some other cool technologies. I will warn you now, the letters A and I get used a lot in this presentation, so I apologize in advance. I'm going to tell you a little story about large language models, which illustrates both the strength and the weakness of large language models and AI's application. Then we're going to take a peek into the near future, which actually kind of speaks to one of the questions that's been posted already, so I'm kind of pleased about that. And then we're going to look, we're going to pull out the crystal ball, and we're going to look into the not so near future and how that might impact on us as EXO users. Okay, so MYOB statement of direction. We've all heard of the software life cycle, the time frame down the bottom. We've got 25 years on this graph. It's probably going to be a bit longer than that for EXO, to be fair. But what we're trying to imply, and this is part of this, the software pack that we believe MYOB will be presenting to everyone or making available to everyone. So this will be part of a link on their website, which is going to give us and everyone that's involved in the EXO product some certainty around what we're going to expect out of EXO. So for us, it's fantastic because, you know, if we get any questions around EXO and I've heard its end of life and you know, I've got the guy from NetSuite's telling me that it'll be dead in a year, we can point you to MYOB's statement of direction, which will be on their website, and you can bring that up and take a look. So EXO on this slide is in the decline phase, and I think we can honestly say that it's probably past its peak. However, what I would note about this slide is that, you know, the software development life cycle is not a smooth bell-shaped curve. It's not this perfect, you know, starts off in its infancy and reaches maturity and then slowly declines into obscurity. It's more like a bowl of spaghetti, because every piece of software is a little bit different in its development life cycle. And we've heard from Anshu earlier today and her talking about all these things that they're putting into the EXO product. And we can actually expect that little EXO dot to crawl its way back up the hill for a couple of years based on all the stuff that MYOB are doing with the product now. So just to note that an aggregate, a bell-shaped curve is what you'd expect out of a piece of software, but the reality is a little bit more detailed than that. For us, and this ties into what Ronnie was saying earlier, Paul Robson, the CEO at MYOB, has said publicly, it's business as usual for MYOB EXO business, nothing changes. And we expect that words to that effect will be part of this statement of direction as well. All right, whoops, we missed a slide. No, we didn't. Now, this is part of the slide pack that MYOB are going to be using, but if we just touch on that last segment, the third point, which is the value in your existing data should not be underestimated when moving to a new system, particularly with the ability AI has to interrogate your data to inform your decisions. For the purposes of this presentation, I think we can delete the when moving to a new system and simply say that the value in your existing data should not be underestimated, particularly with the ability AI has to interrogate your data to inform your decisions. And this is part of what we're going to be talking about a little bit later, is that AI will be able to interrogate not only your EXO database, but all of the databases and systems within your organization, within your network, and give you meaningful information based on that data. So with that said, let's take a look at some emerging tech. First out of the gate, we've got NetStock, and particularly NetStock.ai, which is the new development here. The cool thing about the NetStock AI, and for those of you who don't know what NetStock does, it is an inventory planning and management tool It's been around for quite a while now, and it gives you some really, really strong insights into when to purchase all of the different products that you have in your repertoire, based on consumption and sales forecasting and et cetera, et cetera. It's a very, very powerful tool. The cool thing about the AI functionality that they've recently introduced is it's built on Netstock's own algorithms that they've developed over the years, which are very powerful, tried and true, and we know they give good information, good data, because it's a very good product. So all they've done is they've layered an easy way of querying their already tried and trusted information system and made it easier to interrogate that system and ask it questions. Focus AI is another company, another ISV that's introduced AI into its product. It's a little bit earlier in its development cycle than Netstock. Focus themselves, if you're looking in their product, their AI is flagged as beta. It's in beta phase. But the cool thing that Focus have done with the AI tool is that because Focus being a reporting tool, it's very important for people to understand, if you're going to use AI, if you're going to get something else to generate the report for you, what's it done? How's it given you that information? You've got to trust the information that you're looking at. So what Focus have done is they've built it out so that it tells you every single step that it's applied in order to generate that report or generate that information for you. So if you can read through those steps, and if one of them doesn't quite align with what you're after, you can rephrase your question and get it to go back and give you a better result. So well done, kudos to Focus. A great technique for applying AI to what is quite a complex process. Trailed do AP automations. We've got a few operators in this space. Trailed is the latest one. The cool thing about Trailed is that supports 2- and 3-way matching to align purchase orders with receipts or invoices. So by doing that, you can get quite granular about what it is that you're processing in terms of that receipt or processing in terms of that invoice, right down to the line level, because we know that when it comes to matching technology, often the devil is in the detail and the complexity is in the detail. So it's one of Trail's strengths, amongst others. Pencil is another new emergent on the market. Pencil are currently in the process of developing EXO integration. We're expecting it to be released later this year. They targeted November as their release date, so we know it'll probably be a little bit later than that. It's not like software developers are ever late or anything, Sandy? But the cool thing about Pencil, so they process debtor payments, but they're very effective at that whole onboarding cycle as well. So when you're signing up new debtors and you're going through the credit applications and things like that, they've got some really cool functionality and cool tech to simplify and streamline that process. Also entering the New Zealand market for all of you Kiwis. So look out for that one. Once it's integrated into EXO, your support partner will be sending out notifications and giving you more details around it, and booking in some demos. All right, let's tell a story. This one is about a project called Project SETI. And Project SETI had a rather ambitious goal to learn how to communicate with non-human entities, more specifically sperm whales. And so they used AI to help them achieve that goal. Now, learning how to speak to sperm whales was only one step in a longer term ambition, which was to learn take the skills that they learned. I'm not going to use that word that rugby players always use. Take the skills that they learnt from this process and apply those skills to understanding how to communicate with any extraterrestrial communications that could be sent from outer space. Because if I rewind, SETI with a C dovetails into SETI with an S, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. So yeah, I've gone full Star Trek on you. But the cool thing about this story is that they took a massive data set of sperm whale calls, over 9,000 recordings of sperm whale sounds. And they trained this AI chatbot, if you like, on those sounds. And it got really, really good at understanding the sequence of the sounds and predicting what was going to come next. It got to the point where it was 99% accurate and guessing what the next sound was going to be, the next bloop or squeak or whatever it might be. So they took their tool and they jumped in a boat and they headed off the coast of Alaska, out to where all the sperm whales were congregating at the time. And they had this encounter with this one sperm whale. It was a conversation that lasted for 20 minutes where there were calls backwards and forwards between the sperm whale and the boat, and the boat and the sperm whale. And significantly, for the first time in human history, humans had had a conversation with a non-human species. Incredible. Just one problem. They had no idea what they were saying to the whale, and they had no idea what the whale was saying back, which is a beautiful example of both the strength and the weakness of large language models and AI in general. So the message, I guess the key takeaway here is large language models are very powerful, and if you're not using them already in business, I encourage you to start using them, because what they can produce is fantastic. But they're only as good as the data that they've been trained on. And so if they're pulling their information off the internet, which is full of Donald Trump memes and everything else that may or may not be true, then that's going to bundle all of that up into what it presents back to you as this very compelling, wonderful narrative, because it's extremely good at predicting what the next word should be. It's just not very good at fact-checking those words. So your job is to then make sure that what you're about to present to your boss or the rest of the organization is actually the truth. So that's my lesson for you for today. Let's take a look at the near future. So within the next 12 months, you should be presented with options, either from your EXO support partner or potentially from other partners, that are going to give you chatbot style tools that will interrogate your EXO database. And they'll be able to go away and understand what your EXO database contains, where to find certain information, compile that into the answer that you've just posed the question to, and then report that back to you as either data or a sentence or a graph, however you've asked it to present it. Can also access multiple data sources, not just your EXO. It could be from a SharePoint site, or if you've got a CRM database or something like that. You can, for those who are very security conscious, you can lock it down to on-premise options only, so it won't go away and ask the internet any of the questions that you've just posed to it. It'll just stay within your own network. That way, there's no vector for a hacker to attack your network, but there's also less risk, or you're more in control of the information that's presented, put it that way. There's less risk that it's going to, what's the word they use? Hallucinate. As I mentioned, it'll present information in graphical form if that's preferred. You can have it working within departments, so it'll only give information that's specific to that department. You can lock the information down so that you can't give all your sales team access to the GL and finding out how much everyone's getting paid. It's self-learning, so as long as you give it constructive feedback, it'll keep getting better at doing what it is that you're asking it to do. You can create and change dashboards instantly. You can embed those dashboards into your website, so your customers can see information about your organization if that's relevant. You can share dashboards. Essentially, this is going to be a very powerful tool for those organizations that can't afford some of the bigger and more expensive reporting tools. So that's the near future. If we look a little bit further out into the future, so maybe we're 2, maybe even 3 years out, although who knows, everything's speeding up at the moment, so this could only be 18 months away. We're going to encounter products like Warm Wind. Now, Warm Wind is the rather unpleasantly named tool that a German software company is currently developing, which they're putting forward as the very first cloud employee. So what Warm Wind will do, aside from give you a little every time you say the name, is work with the applications within your business to process whatever thing you need doing that currently is being done by employees. So it could be that it goes onto your social media pages, scans all of the posts, finds a negative comment, pulls that down, emails it through to someone in your customer service department, maybe another Warm Wind employee, and says, oh, hey, by the way, watch out. This customer's just said something, giving us some negative feedback on our Insta page. Or it could be taking information out of an email and then entering that into your exosystem. It doesn't matter what the applications are, it'll work with everything. If you can teach it how to do it, i.e., show it how to do it, just how you teach an employee, then it will repeat that process perfectly every single time. Now, I can imagine as these things get adopted and start using, and Warm Wind's just an example. Like if one gets made, many will get made. Warm Wind's just the first one that's out there at the moment. But I can imagine that a lot of time will then be invested in exception handling, because you can teach it a process and it'll go away and it'll do that process perfectly 1,000 times. But when it gets to the 9th one, it'll run into a problem that it doesn't know how to deal with. So then you invest in your time into, just like you would with an actual employee. Oh, how do I deal with that exception? Oh, I do this. And so I can imagine the future. You'll still need to spend quite a bit of time teaching them how to handle exceptions. Now, sorry, I'm going to rewind for a second before I move on to that slide. The cool thing about Warm Wind, and the thing for a lot of us EXO users, is that it's going to close the gap between those small to medium-sized businesses and what the large businesses can now only afford. So rather than a big company paying a fortune for really expensive software that will do some of the stuff, or invest in a lot of automation in every single area of their business, every single department's got its own bespoke automations built out, and all those automations only do one thing. Well, for a subscription fee, you can get Warm Wind to do a lot of that stuff. So this is why for people that work in that small to medium-sized space, the space that we operate in, tools like applications like Warm Wind are going to be very useful and very important in the future, because getting back to our technology adoption curve, if deciding when to use AI software is going to be one of the biggest decisions that your business has to make in the next 2 or 3 years. Jump too early and you get stuck with clunky products that haven't really been developed out properly, lots of exception handling, lots of errors, and lots of time wasted for little reward. Jump too late and all your competitors have got a head start on you, and that head start might never be closed. So the technology adoption life cycle is going to be a very important part of a lot of our businesses over the next wee while.